Welcome. This is memory and a really good chapter and potentially very useful. Let's get started. Okay, so I want you to think about this. Which one of these is the correct penny? Now, you can hit pause if you really want to try this. I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure. I know it's like on the corner, but the point is that I don't know, even though I've seen pennies my entire life. And the point that I'm trying to make is that this is a hard decision because we just don't care. We don't pay enough attention. So, and when you don't pay attention, then you don't put the info in your brain, you don't encode the information. That's why knowing which one of these pennies is difficult because we don't pay attention, therefore we don't encode it. Okay? So motivation has a lot to do with it too. We haven't encoded that information. We haven't put it into our brain. Therefore, we haven't stored that information. And therefore, we cannot retrieve it easily. Retrieval means get it out of your memory. Okay? So, most important, I want you to know what encoding is. We'll write this down in a second. Encoding is putting it in the brain, and elaboration is when you're trying to make it meaningful to you. You're playing mental tricks with yourself. Storage is keeping it there, and retrieval is getting it out. When you're taking a test, you're trying to retrieve your memory. Ooh, what is that again? As far as computers go, encoding would be typing it on the keyboard or like through a drive or something. Um, Storage would be keeping it somewhere, either on your hard drive or on the cloud. And then retrieval would be getting it onto the screen. Okay. All right. So write this down. So encoding is putting it in, storage is keeping there, and retrieval is getting it out. All right. Moving right along. All right. So answer this question. The answer is C. Encoding, putting it in, getting it out, retrieval. All right. So let's talk about encoding some more. Can you remember this? Let's say I give you a minute. Can you remember this? I mean, if you really put in a lot of effort, maybe, but it wouldn't be easy. Why? Because there's no sound, there's no meaning, there's none of that stuff. You may remember that it's all capital letters, you may remember that it's all trios, but it's really hard to remember because it's a bunch of meaningless garbage that you really can't say. So that's what we call structural encoding. You remember the structure. You don't need to write this down. Okay. Now, what about this? Is this easier? Yeah, it's a little easier. Ma fa ra ba ga. I mean, you could make a song out of it. You can at least say it. You can't say that, but you could say this so it has sound. If you can make it into a sound, it's easier to remember. That's called phonemic encoding or acoustic encoding. Don't write that down. And finally, more important, and we'll write this down in a second, but you need to know the word semantic in this class. Semantic means meaning. For example, a semantic argument is when you're just arguing over the definition of a word. You know, like, is the United States socialist? Well, it depends how you define socialism. It's a silly argument. Okay. So let me ask you a question, and I haven't had you write that down. All right. Which one of these lists is easier to remember? The second one is, because the second one has meaning to it. Those are acronyms, they all have meaning. These don't have any meaning. I mean, maybe one of those does, but these all have meaning. So because they have meaning, that's semantic encoding, that's a more deep level of processing. Okay, draw this on your graph And keep note of the term levels of processing. Draw this on your notes. Notice that semantic encoding is the best. I wouldn't worry about these other two, but you do need to understand that semantic encoding is the deepest level. All right, moving right along. All right, read that. All right, so definition, that's the middle one. That, which one is the meaning of a word? All right, the answer is, so structural is the word picture of the word, semantic is the meaning of the word, phonemic would be the sound of the word. I don't think you need to know what phonemic encoding is, but you do need to know what semantic is. And you need to know the term levels of processing. And semantic encoding is the deepest level of processing. That's what you need to know. I don't think you need to know phonemic or structural. I just don't think you do. Okay. All right. So do this one. The answer is semantic, meaning semantic. All right. Go ahead and read that. This is a good question. The answer is, so when you're counting the letters, that's a shallow level of processing. But when you focus on the meaning, that's a deeper level of processing. So the answer is B. So when you're studying, you want to have meaning. Why do you think I always take words and analyze the meaning of words? Okay, I do that a lot when I teach. Okay. All right. This is a memory technique, chunking. We do that with phone numbers. Our phone number rhythm is da da da, da da da, da 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 da. That's how we chunk our phone numbers. If you were to chunk a grocery list, you could do it like this. Chunk it in the frozen foods, chunk it in the dairy. Okay? And that would be a good way to remember everything. The word facilitate is a word you need to know for college and high school. Facilitate means to make things easier. Facile, easy. You see what that's semantic encoding. I took the Spanish root and made this word easier to understand. That's semantic encoding. All right. Okay, method of loci. Write this down. Remember the word locus of control? Locus of control. Locus means place. Loci is plural. It means places. So if you want to remember a bunch of stuff, close your eyes and imagine those things being in a certain place in, like, say, where you live, or even an imaginary house. And that cognitive map that you are making will help facilitate your memory. So if you go to the store and you think, okay, Dr. Pepper in the sink. I'm not explaining it that great. But if you need to remember bananas, Dr. Pepper, tortillas, think tortillas on the table, but then your mind shifts to the sink and you see Dr. Pepper in the sink. When you use places, it helps you to remember stuff better because it uses the map part of your brain. All right, moving right along. All right. All right, the answer is various spots, various locations. The answer is A, method of loci. All right, draw this graph on your notes. Write this down. You need to know what is the serial position effect. Also, make sure you know primacy effect and recency effect. So that's three terms: serial position effect, primacy effect, recency effect. So it turns out that if I gave you a list of 10 things to remember at the store, you're more likely to forget the middle items, but you are likelier to remember the items at the beginning of the list, primacy effect, primo, primacy, premier, premier, and then recency effect are the last items on the list. Why is that called recency effect? Because it's most recent in your memory. So recency effect, think about primacy effect as your first impression. How you like you're meeting your girlfriend's parents for the first time. And I go, "Hi, my name's Aaron," and then I fart. That's the first impression. We always remember first impressions are memorable because of the primacy effect. And then recency effect is the last impression, the last thing that you remember about them because it's more recent in your memory. But the stuff in the middle, not so much. So, serial position effect. Position means position. Serial means like where on the list. Or serial actually, I think, means number. So think number position effect, meaning that where you are on a list makes a difference. If you're at the beginning, if you're at the end, you're more likely to be remembered. If you're in the middle, not so much. All right, so that's 3 terms right there. So let me try to help you encode this stuff. Think of the word series. Dexter is a series about a serial killer. A serial killer is somebody who murders one person, then murders another person. Serial. So same thing, primacy effect at the beginning, at primo, premier, at the beginning, recency, more recent at the end. In the middle, you're more likely to forget. Now, I heard this the other day and I wanted to share. When you are a prosecutor and you have many witnesses to take the stand, you want your best witness at the beginning because of the primacy effect. And at the end, you want your best witnesses, the most recent, because of the recency effect. The witnesses in the middle, you put the weakest witnesses in the middle. To have the maximum impact on a jury, you use this serial position effect. I thought that was interesting. Okay. All right, moving right along. All right, do the question. The answer is serial position effect. You forget the middle. All right. Elena is presented with a list of 20 numbers. When asked to recall this list, she remembers more numbers from the beginning than from the end. So what's the answer? The answer is primacy effect. Primo, premier, premier, first, prime. All right, read this. This is oh yeah, we've done this. This is a good question. Read that. So Emma's performance on history tests will probably be better because Emma is studying on the answer is deeper levels of processing. Because Emma is is relating the information. So he's doing a deeper level of processing. All right, read that. All right, so check this out. Mary never learned the names. Now, does that mean she has some kind of amnesia? No. It simply means the answer is C. She never encoded that information. It's kind of like when you tell your teacher, I forgot to do my homework. No, you didn't forget. You just never knew that we had homework in the first place. Yeah, it's and It's just something that you say. I get it. But the point is that just like with the penny, you didn't forget what a penny looked like. You just never bothered to pay attention. So that's an encoding failure. All right. Do this one. The answer is serial position effect. Okay, that should be on your notes. If you didn't write this on your notes, that means you're not going to encode the information. Writing notes helps you to encode it. All right. The recency effect. The answer is at the end of the list. Enhanced recall at the end of the list. All right. Okay, 1 minute video. Watch this. Please put your phone down and watch this.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
All right, I hope you like that. That's pretty cool. So here's the deal, and this is what, and we all know this to be true, and I'm not picking on you, but maybe I am, so what? But we're all addicted to our phones. We all got an issue, but selective attention is when you can focus on one thing and you tune everything else out. And if you're paying more attention to your phone and not the lesson, then remember this: you can't encode if you are not paying attention. Okay? I mean, that's just how it is. Now, some of you are better at it than others. Some of you are smarter than me. I've seen you guys study. You'll have my video playing and have the phone in your lap, and I just don't think that's the best way to do it. But it's up to me if I want to do something about that. But I need you to write this down. So it's when you pay attention to one thing and you tune everything else out. So when you see a question on this, it's usually about tuning out a distracting sound. Like you're taking a test and you're tuning out a sound. All right, moving right along. Okay, so do that question. The answer is selective attention, like the moonwalking bear. Okay. All right. Go ahead and answer this one. The answer is A. This is you when you're on your phone while watching this video. I know I'm picking on you a little bit, but get over it. Okay? All right, moving right along. Okay, self-reference effect. Here's something that we all know to be true. If we like a class, it's easier to remember. If we can make a class personally relevant to us, we find information in a class to be personally relevant, then it's easier for us to remember. So let's say I'm teaching mental illness, and since your mom is bipolar, then it's easier to remember what I teach you about something like that. Okay, I'm just making that up. Okay, let's say you want to go into business. So if you're in a certain career class, you might pay more attention and you might remember stuff better because it's relevant to you and your interest. So you could remember Xbox cheats or game cheats, but you can't remember your homework. It's just human nature. Okay. But you remember things that are personally relevant. Okay, moving right along. Okay, I don't know what you need to write down, but I do know that one thing I've seen recently is this term. All three of these pretty much mean the same. Let me explain, and then um, I don't know what you should write down. Maybe just the red words and underline context dependent. Let me explain. If you want to remember something, it's best to recall something if you're in the same state of being or same location, same mood, same context as you were when you encoded it. So think about like you're in a classroom and you're learning all this stuff. Don't you think that you would do better on the AP exam if you took the AP exam in that specific room? Yeah, you would. We call that context dependent memory. If you are if you're going to do practice on stage, it's good if you're going to actually perform on that stage. State dependent memory. Let's say you study while you're high, and then you go take the test and you're not high. Well, you're in a different state of being. Your recall isn't going to be as good. Mood congruence. If you're in a bad mood when you're studying, but you're in a good mood when you're testing, that's not good. Or the opposite's true. What if you're in a good mood when you study, but then right before the test, you get in a fight with your girlfriend or your boyfriend? Now you're in a bad mood during the test. You're not going to remember as much. So in a way, in my mind, all of this means the same. Let me show you the questions that I found on this topic. All right, not this one, but go ahead and answer this one. Which numbers does she most likely remember? The answer is the beginning and the end. Okay. All right, another one. Read that. The answer is D. This is not an AP question, but I think it's a good one. If you're in the same state of being as you were when you encoded the information, you're better off. You're going to be better off remembering it. Okay. All right. Read this. The answer is boom. It's kind of like what I said about the stage earlier. Context affects. Context matters when it comes to memory. All right, read that. The answer is context dependent memory. Okay. Same room, you'll do better. All right, read that. The answer is it's self-reference effect, because he's using if it's personally relevant to him, it's easier to remember. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the stages of memory. So you've got sensory memory, which lasts about 2 seconds. I'll demonstrate this in a second. Then you've got short-term memory, which we call working memory. It lasts about 20 seconds, and it can hold between 5 and 9 items. And then you got your long-term memory, which, as far as we know, there are no limitations. That doesn't mean it's perfect, though. So working memory, think of like a phone number. If you think of the area code as one item, then you have to remember you can store a phone number for a, at most 20 seconds without constantly repeating it and thinking about it. All right, so let me demonstrate sensory memory. Okay, on the next slide, you will see a series of letters for 1 second. Try to remember as many letters as you can. Okay, ready, set. You see that? Can you remember any of them? Yeah, maybe a few, but that is called sensory memory. You can kind of see a little bit of gray once the letters go away. That's sensory memory. So sensory memory lasts. Visual sensory memory is called iconic memory, and iconic memory lasts about 2 seconds. Auditory sensory memory lasts a few seconds longer. We call that echoic. I'm not sure how important that is, but think about this. How many times has somebody said, "Are you listening to me?" And then you can rewind the conversation a few seconds ago. Yeah, you were talking about blah, 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 when you were really tuning that person out. Auditory sensory memory lasts a little bit longer than visual. I don't know if that's important or not. But if I'm on the laptop and I get a verification code to type into my cell phone, then I might say it out loud because my auditory sensory memory is a few seconds. Okay. So sensory memory traces fade fairly rapidly unless you do something further with it, like repeat it, say it out loud, think about it. Okay, okay, I just double checked. This stuff is on a very long list of things you need to know for the AP exam. I haven't seen it in all my years of teaching it, but iconic memory is visual. Like if I took a flashlight and made a letter with a flashlight in the dark, you can kind of see like the number 8. I could take a flashlight and make the number 8. That's called iconic. Think of what an icon is. It's very visual. Like Rosie the Riveter is iconic for World War II. Echoic memory is sound. It's kind of like your memory of hearing things. You can kind of rewind that memory back 4 seconds to recall a conversation. That's called echoic memory. Anyway, moving right along. Okay, working memory. Working memory it's also called short-term memory. It can hold about between 5 and 9 items, and which is about what a phone number is. In order for something to get from sensory memory, you have to pay attention. If you're not paying attention, then it's not going to go into short-term memory. For example, have you ever heard a squirrel bark? Well, you may not have been paying attention, so you never encoded that information. It never got into your short-term memory. Or how about this? You're on your phone during class and you start tuning out your teacher, so what your teacher is teaching you does not get into your short-term memory. Okay? And how do you convert short-term memory into long-term memory? Repetition, sleep, and making it meaningful. Okay? By the way, there's a concept of this that I've seen before. It's called the phonological loop. Think of it as you're repeating information over and over again. It's like a loop. Okay. All right. Short-term memory can hold unrehearsed information up to 20 seconds. It can hold about 7 items plus or minus 2, about what a phone number is. Okay? All right, this is important. Rehearsal. Why do you think I don't repeat myself that much in class anymore, but if I teach you something, then I might mention it the next time I meet you. Then you'll see it again on your quizzes. Then you'll see it again on your test. And then you'll see it again maybe in the review later on. That's what rehearsal is. Rehearsal is studying your note cards. Repetition. If you repeat yourself and you're getting enough sleep, then your hippocampus will allow you to convert your short-term memory into your long-term memory. Okay? Rehearsal is repetition. Okay? Somebody gives you their phone number and you repeat it several times to write it down. That's rehearsal. Ideally, you would be studying your notes every few days. I know that's like mega valedictorian type stuff, but yeah. All right, answer this. The capacity of working memory is what? The answer is D, about what a phone number is. Okay, read that. The answer is rehearsal, repetition. 469-235. All right, read that. The answer is personally relevant self-reference effect. And finally, long-term memory. Okay, you need to have the words where I have a heart next to it, you need to have that memorized. Semantic memory, we've already talked about semantic. Think of it as the meaning or the definition of words. Language, facts, general knowledge. Episodic memory, think of your life as a TV show, and your first kiss is like an episode of your life. Episodic memory. That time you fell off your bicycle, that's an episodic memory. That time you crapped your pants in the middle of class, that's episodic memory. Autobiographical memory. And finally, procedural memory. Memory for procedures like walking, riding a bike, stuff that's stored in the cerebellum, that's procedural memory. Okay, write that down, we're moving on. So semantic memory, I know what a guitar is. Episodic memory, I remember buying my first guitar. It was an episode of your life. Procedural memory, I remember how to play a guitar. That's a procedural memory. All right. So, remembering how to roller skate. The answer is procedural memory. Remembering that one time you went roller skating, that's episodic memory. All right, your knowledge that blah, blah, blah. The answer is semantic memory. Knowledge, facts, semantic memory. All right, 10th birthday party. The answer is episodic memory. That one day, that's an event. Episodic memory. All right, read that. The answer is, all right, tying your shoes, that's procedural memory. Knowing where he lives, that's semantic memory. This confuses me, but implicit memory is when you remember and recall without effort. Like you live in a foreign country and you just absorb it. Procedural memories are kind of implicit memory. Remembering bad memories when you're in a bad mood. It just happens automatically. That's implicit memory. It confuses me personally. I'm just letting you know. Okay. All right, read that. The answer is, okay, so Aaron learned German very easily because of his exposure. That's kind of like just automatic learning. It's called implicit learning. All right, that's enough. Thank you.